Hello my friends and welcome. Today I would like to tell you the story of Halloween, or Samhain. It is a Gaelic festival marking the end of the harvest season and beginning of winter, or darker half of the year. In the Northern Hemisphere, it is held on the 1st of November, but with celebrations beginning on the evening of the 31st of October, as the Celtic day began and ended at sunset. This is about halfway between the autumn equinox and winter solstice. It is one of the 4 quarter days, associated with Gaelic seasonal festivals, along with Imbolc, Beltane, and Lugnaza. It was observed throughout Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. Some Neolithic passage tombs in Ireland are aligned with the sunrise at the time of Halloween. It is first mentioned in the earliest Irish literature from the 9th century, and is associated with many important events in Irish mythology. The early literature says Halloween was marked by great gatherings and feasts, and also with sacrifices. The festival did not begin to be recorded in detail until the early modern era. It was when cattle were brought down from the summer pastures and when livestock were slaughtered, when the ancient burial mounds were open, which were seen as portals to the other world. Some of the literature also associates Samhain with bonfires. As at Beltane, special bonfires were lit. These were deemed to have protective and cleansing powers, and there were rituals involving them. Like Beltane, Samhain was a liminal, or threshold festival, when the boundary between this world and the other world thinned. Meaning the spirits or the fairies could more easily come into our world. People also took special care not to offend the spirits and fairies, and sought to ward off any who were out to cause mischief. They stayed near to home, or if forced, to walk in the darkness, turned their clothing inside out, or carried iron or salt, to keep them at bay. The dead were also honored. The beginning of winter may have been seen as the most fitting time to do so, as it was a time of dying in nature. The souls of the dead were thought to revisit their homes seeking hospitality. Places were set at the dinner table and by the fire to welcome them. The belief that the souls of the dead would return home on one night of the year and must be appeased, seems to have ancient origins which are found in many cultures throughout the world. It was perhaps a natural thought that the approach of winter should drive the poor shivering, hungry ghosts, from the bare fields and the leafless woodlands, to the shelter of the cottage. However, the souls of thankful kin could return to give blessings, just as easily as that of a wronged person could return to wreak revenge. Mumming and guising were part of the festival from at least the early modern era, whereby people went door to door in costume reciting verses in exchange for food. The costumes may have been a way of imitating and disguising oneself from the spirits. Divination was also a big part of the festival and often involved nuts and apples. In the 9th century, the Church had shifted the date of All Saints' Day to the 1st of November, while the 2nd of November later became All Souls' Day. Over time, it is believed that Samhain and All Saints influenced each other, and eventually morphed into the modern Halloween. Folklorists have used the name Samhain to refer to Gaelic Halloween customs up until the 19th century. One custom described a blatant example of a pagan rite surviving into the Christian epoch, which was observed in the Outer Hebrides until the early 19th century. On the 31st of October, the locals would go down to the shore. One man would wade into the water up to his waist, where he would pour out a cup of ale and ask Shoni, whom he called God of the Sea, to bestow blessings on them. Development of artifacts and symbols associated with Halloween formed over time. Jack-o'-lanterns are traditionally carried by guisers on All Hallows' Eve, in order to frighten evil spirits. There is a popular Irish Christian folktale associated with the jack-o'-lantern, which in folklore is said to represent a soul who has been denied entry into both heaven and hell. En route home after a night's drinking, Jack encounters the devil and tricks him into climbing a tree. A quick-thinking Jack etches the sign of the cross into the bark. thus trapping the devil. Jack strikes a bargain that Satan can never claim his soul. After a life of sin, drink, and mendacity, Jack is refused entry to heaven when he dies. Keeping his promise, the devil refuses to let Jack into hell and throws a live coal straight from the fires of hell at him. It was a cold night, so Jack places the coal in a hollowed-out turnip to stop it from going out. And since then Jack and his lantern have been roaming looking for a place to rest. In Ireland and Scotland, the turnip has traditionally been carved during Halloween, but immigrants to North America use the native pumpkin, which is both much softer and much larger, making it easier to carve than a turnip. The American tradition of carving pumpkins is recorded in 1837 and was originally associated with harvest time in general, not becoming specifically associated with Halloween until the mid to late 19th century. Trick-or-treating is a customary celebration for children on Halloween. Children go in costume from house to house, asking for treats such as candy or sometimes money, with the question, trick or treat. The word trick implies a threat to perform mischief on the homeowners or their property if no treat is given. In England, from the medieval period up until the 1930s, people practiced the Christian custom of souling on Halloween, which involved groups of soulers, both Protestant and Catholic, going from parish to parish, begging the rich for soul cakes, in exchange for praying for the souls of the givers and their friends. In the Philippines, the practice of souling is called pangangaluwa, and is practiced on All Hallows Eve, among children in rural areas. People drape themselves in white cloths to represent souls and then visit houses, where they sing in return for prayers and sweets. In Scotland and Ireland, guising, children disguised in costume going from door to door for food or coins, is a traditional Halloween custom. It is recorded in Scotland at Halloween in 1895 where masqueraders in disguise carrying lanterns made out of scooped-out turnips, visit homes to be rewarded with cakes, fruit, and money. In Ireland, the most popular phrase for kids to shout, until the 2000s, was "Help the Halloween party." The practice of guising at Halloween in North America is first recorded in 1911, where a newspaper in Kingston, Ontario, Canada reported children going guising around the neighborhood. American historian and author Ruth Edna Kelly of Massachusetts wrote the first book-length history of Halloween in the U.S. The Book of Halloween, 1919, and references souling in the chapter Halloween in America. In her book, Kelly touches on customs that arrived from across the Atlantic. Americans have fostered them, and are making this an occasion something like what it must have been in its best days overseas. All Halloween customs in the United States are borrowed directly or adapted from those of other countries. The thousands of Halloween postcards produced between the turn of the 20th century and the 1920s commonly show children but not trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treating does not seem to have become a widespread practice in the U.S. until the 1930s, with the first appearances of the term in 1934. And the first use in a national publication occurring in 1939. The modern imagery of Halloween comes from many sources, including Christian eschatology, national customs, works of Gothic and horror literature, such as the novels Frankenstein and Dracula, and classic horror films such as The Mummy, as well as famous TV programs like The Munsters and The Addams Family. Imagery of the skull, a reference to Golgotha in the Christian tradition, serves as a reminder of death and the transitory quality of human life, and is consequently found in Memento Mori and Vanitas compositions. Skulls have therefore been commonplace in Halloween, which touches on this theme. Elements of the autumn season, such as pumpkins, corn husks, and scarecrows, are also prevalent. Homes are often decorated with these types of symbols around Halloween. Halloween imagery includes themes of death, evil, and mythical monsters, Black cats, which have been long associated with witches, are also common symbols. Black, orange, and purple are Halloween's traditional colors. And that, my friends, is my story about the origins of Halloween. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.